Coco, this is my happy birthday video to you. Um, and you know, I I'd gotten a gift for you months ago, and I made some passing comment to Momo in an email a couple weeks ago about having you stop at the post office and send you them. And she said, "Don't do that because you might not get it, and you know, so you're gonna have to wait until next Christmas, winter break, to get your gift because I'll be back there in just over a year." But in the meantime, this is my attempt at wishing you a happy birthday and my reflections about you as a person. You know, I have, after I got out of graduate school in Pittsburgh, I went to Scotland for a year of postgraduate studies. And I mean, my great-great-grandfather came from Scotland, so, and I love Scotland, but I love traveling. In the 50 years, about 50 years since graduate school and going to Scotland, I've not only taken classes overseas, I've taught classes overseas, I've been a tour guide, had tour guides, and I've done it on my own in places. And you know, and there, I mean, I've had twice, and Myanmar, I've said this a million times also, your country, of all the countries I've ever visited, and I've visited 3 or 4 dozen countries and spent time in lots of countries. Of all the countries, your country is the single most important and life-changing country that I've ever visited. Hands down. And it was transformative. It changed who I was. The first trip and the second trip certainly. And the third trip it will do the same thing. But it's not that I was going down this road and then once I got to Myanmar that changed the direction of my road. That's not what happened to me. What happened to me is that I've always been a liberal, left of center, which means, you know, they're involved in civil rights and involved in movements of trying to change the world. But Myanmar simply took me from where I was to now where I am. I've had in the 2 times I've been to Myanmar probably a total of probably like 8 tour guides. 4 the first year and 4 the first time and 4 the second time. And they've all been very good. There's nothing that I can say anything negative about any of my tour guides. But there are only 3 of all the guides that I've ever had that are extremely You say the word superlative. Superlative means really great. And those three guides, one of them was your wife, the other one was you, and the third one was a guy who, I don't know if you know who he is. He lives in Yangon, but he spent some time in Mandalay. I'm not sure, but in the area. His name is Tin Hutton, Tin space Htun. And he and you have something very similar, because the thing I admire about Tin is I also admire about you. When I first, in fact, he was my first tour guide the first time I landed in Yangon. And basically he said, exactly like you do, at the beginning of the day, here are the things we're normally going to do. What do you really want to do? This might interest you more than this, and so we'll spend more time here. You did exactly that with me. I got there and I told him I wanted to interview the lady, Dao Aung San Suu Kyi, and I said I want to go to talk to Min Kun On at the 88 Generations headquarters, which wasn't too far from the hotel I was staying in. I mean, I'm thinking about it. All you had to do is go. Yeah, and that's about the only place in Yangon. Well, I can get to Shuli Pagoda from the hotel I was where. But you do that. You would, and I said this. I don't know if I've said this to you one-on-one, or I've certainly written about it. But you have a mind that's like a computer. You know what the default is. Whatever day that we're going to go see, the company you work for tells you, here are the list of places you're going to take this person to. And you always check with me and said, this is this. Is there anything that interests you more or less? And you would, modify the plan, enter it in your brain, and off we go. So, there are a million. And if I don't speed this thing up, you're going to become an old man by the time I finish this. And I don't. I'm sure you remember this, but I don't think that you see this. It might be interesting to see or hear what you thought. But one of the things I admire about you is that basically you're the teacher, and you're going to teach your people you're guiding about the area that you're taking them to. We were in the pagodas, and you pointed out what looked like to me, it's true, what looked like to me just a weed growing out between the base of a pagoda. And you started talking about it, about being a Bo tree. Then it dawned on me about Buddha. But then you started talking about something about the top of the pagoda. And I was fumbling around about, so what? And then you finally took the leaf and see? You and your wife would do that. And interestingly, TT's, when she has the time, she's done one on Inlay Lake. And she's a lot like you and your wife. She will make sure that you understand that whoever she's guiding, understand all of the issues that are important in this area. And she was talking about Inlay Lake and talking about how high it was and how deep it was. So one is, and it's not, it's both you and Momo are very caring people who care about they care about me, care about the people they take on tours, they care about their own children. And I have loads of pictures of you playing with your kids, talking to your kids. You and Momo are good parents. And it is just, and I remember, your wife's saying that she had to pick up the paper and stopping and meeting Titi. But that day, we'd gone to a kind of daycare preschool where Snow and Fatty were, and saw them in their school. Spent time with Titi, played Scrabble with her. That single event of playing Scrabble with Titi was, when I left there, she was my granddaughter. And she became the bridge by which the two families came together. But I met you there, and pictures of, you've seen pictures of that on my webpage. But what interested me was that you were interested in talking to me. And, you were getting paid for it. I mean, it was just the way you were, or are. And there are a million things that are just floating in my mind. Randy Posh, who did the last lecture, if you go to articles on my webpage, and on the right-hand side, just scroll down and see the last lecture. That guy was dying of pancreatic cancer, and he was more alive during his lecture than anybody in the lecture hall. And he said, make sure you always tell people what you appreciate about them. Because sometime you're not going to be around to tell them, meaning they died. And it's important for me. I mean, I learned a lesson from Bosch because I've done the dance twice. And once I realized what had happened, I go overboard in making sure that everybody knows what I love and like about them. And that's one of the things. I mean, you're good with your kids. You're good with strangers. You're good with teaching a tour guide, a student tour guide. And those are the kind of the caring things. But you're also good at building homes and wiring homes, and you're always working. And one of the, this is rambling. I'm going to have to cut this thing. But I wrote an article that came out last week about dreaming. I mean, it's about TT and her laptop and what she's doing. And, I gave her a laptop that wasn't going to do me any good. So there's no virtue in that. But once I gave it to her and she can use it, I mean, she's using it to help me in my webpage. But once I gave it to her, there are two problems with that. One is that the internet access is not great in Myanmar. And the second thing is that Myanmar is an emerging country, and the only way Myanmar is going to catch up with the rest of the world is to have a generation of kids that are educated. And me giving a laptop to TT isn't going to do much for Myanmar to help TT. And I felt guilty. I felt guilty about, one, in giving her a laptop that has limitations because of the internet. And the other I felt guilty about is she goes to school with, she and Fatty and Snow, with 1,200 other students. I don't know how many of those other kids have access to a computer. And if they don't have access to a computer, they don't have access to the world out there. And man, I'll tell you, talk about being driven. Once I realized that, that resulted in this We Are Family in Myanmar Inc. And I'm still, I've gotten incorporated. I've sent the forms, 501 C3 form to the government, and it's simply going to be paperwork getting it done. It's all done. All they have to do is stamp it and say okay. I'm not going to have any problem getting that approved, but I can't start my fundraising until I get that done, and that might take a couple months. But I plan to be back in Myanmar winter break in just over a year from now with 1,250 laptops, and have talked to a couple people, different companies, about internet. We've emailed and talked about that with you. And that is, man, I'll tell you, it should be obvious that I love your family. But I also love Myanmar, and how not just your family, but other people like Tin Hutton and other people who I met while I was there. This, this is a true, I don't know why I'm telling you it's a true story. It is. I was in Yangon and I wanted to go to the Popochi's shrine in Yangon, and I got to the neighborhood, and there were a couple buildings that looked, and I couldn't tell which one it was. And so there was a policeman standing there who didn't look like necessarily a friendly guy, but I didn't want to stop some total stranger, so I went up to this guy, and he didn't understand English, and obviously I don't understand any Myanmar. But I kept on saying Bobo-G or something like that, and he didn't understand. And so I was ready to say, okay, I'm sorry. He said, no, wait. And then he goes and brings a couple of friends over. There were people that were bypassers or people that were walking past, and say, do you know about, listen to what he's asking for. I kept on saying it, thinking that And my pronunciation probably isn't perfect, but you should have got it. And finally, one of them said, Popo G. And 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 that's a funny story down in Yangon, up in your home in near Tangier, or I don't know whether it's in Tangier or near Tangier. Fatty, Titi made my name, Papa Al, and she and Snow call me that, but Fatty will call me Popo G. I mean, I am just, you know how much you love your family? I know how much you love your family because that's how much I love your family, which is my family. And I could go on and on about your wife. I could go on and on about you and TT and Snow and Fatty. But I want to wish you a very, very happy birthday. Because you and your family changed me. And so your wishing you happy birthday is my way of saying thank you. I'm a very, very lucky person. So happy birthday and take care. And I guarantee you I'll see you in just over a year. Take care.